Hello everyone, and welcome to the video tutorial for the Advanced Spawn Manager. For this one, we're just going to be covering a bit of a quick start guide and how to integrate this with your own project with some coding considerations. So I'm just going to show you some quick examples. There's one already here. You go examples, prefab examples, and then simple structure. And you just drag this into your scene. And you can see it's already got your spawn manager. This is one I've been using in the videos. And I'm going to show you how to expand it to spawn more enemy types. So let's go have a look at the code. And you can see here we have your spawn manager class, which just is a child of the spawning manager. So feel free to either recreate or edit this class. It's got enough comments through it that explain some of the things it do. So for example, this is pretty important. If you don't call this method, then the spawning manager won't actually start running. And you can use these delegates here to hook into doing things. So for example, printing messages when your wave finishes and stuff like that. What you really want is this method here, which is spawn object. And you're going to want to edit this method. But before you can, you need to actually define the enemy that you're going to be spawning. And to do that, you need to edit this enemy types enum. So you can either click it and push using Visual Studio F12. I think that's the same in MonoDevelop. And it'll take you to this file, enemy types. And in this file, this is where you just add the different types of enemy you want. I've added these hooks so you can actually search for these strings and it should find the file for you. And then here's where you add your new enemy type. So for this case, I'm going to put an archer. I'm going to go back to my spawn manager, and if I now copy this line here, you should be able to select our archer. There we go. The other thing we need to do though is we need to actually define the object. So I'm going to scroll up here. Like I say, you can edit this to any way you want. This can be arrays, whatever you want to do here. And I'm just going to keep it simple for just game objects. And I'm going to put my archer enemy. And then I'm just going to copy that down here. So now it knows to spawn an archer. If you don't do this and you forget one, by default it'll shout at you and it'll tell you which enemy type you haven't defined, which we find quite useful. And if you go back to your scene now, it should update. There we go. And you can see that it now has a space for you to add your enemy. I'm just going to copy the default again. And there we go. The other thing to consider is actually overriding the enemy type. So I'll show you an example of that here. So going back to my code, and the default class right now is your enemy. Again, some comments in this, and it's just a child of the enemy component. So as long as you create a similar example. In this case, what I'm going to do on initialize, this actually shows how you can link the replacement manager. You just use a single line. But I'm going to comment it out so we don't have any errors in this build, so we can just watch what happens. And that should now let us just spawn our enemies. There we go, we can see them spawning and no errors. Okay, and we'll click back and check the actual instructions themselves. See we're spawning default, but if we wanted to, we can switch to our archer. These hooks are still here. And it'll now spawn away as well. The final thing to consider is the player skill. This example here, this is actually the base component for player skill. So for what we want, I'm going to remove this and show you an example instead. It's called test player skill. I've already got it highlighted. And I'm going to drag this in here instead. And I'm just going to set some values. And I'm going to look at what this is. Again, it's called test player skill. And you can overwrite this and create this however you want. All you really need to know is it needs to be of the type player skill, and so long as you pass a percentage to the percentage skill variable, everything else will be handled for you. And this is what you'll have to determine yourself, is how this percentage increases. In this particular case, I've set an integer, and I set the integer in the editor. So you could have an integer and increase it for, say, every 10 seconds if it goes by without taking damage, or however you see fit. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Hope you guys have enjoyed it.